Ay, ay, ay. I just hope I'm not on yet.
Uh-oh, what if you're already on?
I hope there's a button I can
Maybe
click.
I'll go look and see if you're on. Maybe we can't go in there. Live broadcast.
Oh my God, am I live? Yikes. Hold on. Holy mackerel. All right, sorry. This is how I think I'm live. Maybe somebody can tell me if I'm live. I'm new to this type of restream. It's my third time, and since I'm only doing it once a month, I guess, let's see if there's comments. Sorry, I'm not the most tech savvy. I'm probably the least tech savvy. Streaming settings. See, the thing is it says I'm live, but I can't see comments. That's the thing that worries me. Where do the comments show up? Nope, that's not it. Okay. Well, my phone tells me I'm live. I'm so sorry. At least I know it's working. It's showing people mostly on YouTube and Facebook. So, all right, I see you guys. I just cannot see your questions. So let's see if I can find out where this chat box is. Because I do have a lot of questions, so don't worry about that. They've been sent in. The question is, where do the comments appear? Dashboard. Let's try dashboard. Let's see if they're there. Nope. Titles. How about titles? Nope. Social alerts. That's there's only one where. Vicky, thank you, Vicky. Vicky says she can see and hear me. So I'm going to get going with today's monthly Q&A. Welcome. I just cannot see your comments, so I'm really sorry about that. But luckily, so many of you have written in questions in advance, so we're going to have plenty to talk about. So first of all, happy, healthy New Year to you and yours. If I look a little tired, it's because I am. I skedaddled out of Mexico. I've been working there for several weeks at Rancho La Puerta. If you ever get a chance to go there, it really is the coolest place in the world. I was giving lectures and teaching cooking, but Dr. Michael Greger spoke yesterday at where I live. And so we drove home like at midnight. So I'm a little bit tired, but it was great seeing him. So Charles, do you know where I can see the comments? That's the only thing. I know I'm live. I don't see any comments. That's the thing.
See, I'm not.
Yeah, so we're just going to have to go with it. Okay, so here we go. So these questions have been sent in. So where you send a question in is, since I can't see them live, is you always can write them in through my website, chefajwebsite.com, and we save them like some people have done, and I printed them out. You can send them in if you're a member of any of my groups, like the Ultimate Weight Loss Program or Feel Fabulous Over 40. These are places that you can submit the questions as well. And YouTube, I try to answer all the questions as they come in, but I'm not seeing the comments now, and I don't want to take up any more of your time looking for these comments. So unless I can go to chat, I'm going to try one more thing. I just don't want to mess up, so I'm going to just go restream chat.
Are you live?
I am live. Restream. I'm just going to, I don't know if you can do this. See, the guy that helps me with this, my fabulous partner, Toby, he's in Germany, and it's 9 hours ahead, so I don't think he's up, but I will ask him how we did this. So, yep, I don't want to double go live. So here we go. All right, there we go. Question number 1 from Lisa, can you have the green powder daily? So you can, but why would you? So what green powder is, if you're not familiar, it's a supplement, and I'm not against all supplements. I think that it's important if you take a supplement to know what you're supplementing, and the only supplement that vegans really need is B12. It's 1,000 micrograms a day. Some need to take vitamin D, or if they believe that they need it. You know, that's controversial because there's a lot of the plant-based doctors like Dr. Pam Popper, who you can look up on YouTube, or Dr. McDougall, who are completely against vitamin D. even if you show you're deficient. I'm not a doctor. I'm not telling you to take it or not take it. I'm just telling you that with the exception of B12, everything else should be prescribed by a doctor rather than you just supplementing things because you think you should. So B12 is non-negotiable for vegans, although it can take a very long time for the deficiency to show up. Dr. Goldhammer, I believe, waited something like 30 years testing his blood levels until he started to show a deficiency, but we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that we take a good quality B12. There's debate whether cyanocobalamin or methylcobalamin is better, but the main thing is vegans need to take it, and you can't rely on fortified foods like nutritional yeast and plant milks to make sure that you're getting enough B12. And people that are not vegan say, well, that's proof that it's not a good diet because you have to supplement. What they don't understand is there's an equal amount of deficiency of B12 from people that are carnivores that aren't, first of all, but also B12 is not from eating meat. B12 is what the cattle gets because they ate the grass and they ate the dirt. And back in the day, we didn't have as good washing practices, and people ate some, bacteria and microorganisms. Now everything is so sterile. So it has nothing to do with the animal, that they don't produce B12. It's a microorganism. But that said, the green powder, what that's used for often in some people is because they just don't eat any vegetables, and that's like literally the only vegetables they get. So green powders, there's different companies. Some put like a lot of stuff in them, which I'm not crazy about, because even though they say that they're gluten-free, those of us that have gluten sensitivity, we get very sick when we eat the ones that have wheatgrass or barley grass, no matter what they say about gluten-free. And we've tested this over and over, and they make us literally physically ill to the point where we'll vomit. I think they taste pretty nasty. Some of the companies put in stevia to make it sweet, which, I'm not for the processed sweeteners at all. And all the stevia, erythritol, xylitol, mannitol, all the aspartame, all those 0 calories sweeteners are just probably worse for you than sugar, both in terms of food addiction and microbiome. So I would say if you're going to take a green powder, get one that's just kale. Like Costco sells a powder. It literally is dehydrated kale. What people use them for is, it's an idea of John Pierre, who facilitates the Ultimate Weight Loss Program with me, is that for when people have cravings for sugar, they are mitigated by greens. So why not just eat some green vegetables? Why not, have a green juice? The thing is, if you are eating vegetables for breakfast, greens like we recommend, these cravings are going to be dialed down. And I was thrilled to hear Dr. Michael Greger talk about this in his new book, How Not to Diet. Something that I've been saying for over 8 years now is that greens have these compounds called thylakoids, which have been shown to just turn off the hunger switch, especially the cravings for sweets. And so that's what the green powder does. So if somebody is a food addict and struggling because they're at a social setting or a party and there's all these tempting treats, the idea is you put some of it in your water bottle and you sip it to alkalize your palate. And so I don't see why you couldn't have them daily, but unless you're going to like a buffet every day and you need to alkalize your palate because you're afraid you're going to go off plan, why not just eat the greens for breakfast like we recommend, set the tone for the day so that you won't have these cravings. So the other thing, like I've been in situations, greens do shut off the hunger drive as well. Like I was at a Passover Seder once, and they called it for 5 o'clock, and the food didn't come until 9 o'clock. And by then, who wants to eat at 9 o'clock? But they have parsley on the Seder plate, and I was just chomping down on parsley, and that does the same thing. So I don't think it has to be a green powder. It can be greens. It can be like you could chew on parsley. But I suppose you could have it daily, but I would rather have people get their nourishment from the whole plant food more than the juice or the powder. So hope that answered your question. Christy says, what is a good exercise while being obese and healing bone spurs to help with weight loss? So, I don't look at exercise as something that you want to do for weight loss. I'm in the second year now of being the host and the interview of the Real Truth About Weight Loss Summit, where I interview mostly doctors, but other people that aren't doctors. And they all agree that we don't exercise to lose weight, because there is a very famous article in the Scientific American Journal, which unfortunately it's a paid article. Otherwise, I just posted for you guys. And it's called The Exercise Paradox. And they showed that exercise actually contributes very negligibly to weight loss. And they talked about how almost everybody in The Biggest Loser, where they have lost gain the weight back. But exercise has a host of other benefits, and we sure recommend you do it daily, especially if you're trying to lose weight, because mainly it builds your self-esteem. It makes you feel better about yourself. It increases your willpower, which means it increases your ability to stick to a healthy eating plan. And of course, it's got other wonderful benefits: brain health, bone health, immune function, things like that. And it just really does improve your self-esteem. And that said, if somebody has a lot of weight, they're not going to be able to necessarily run a marathon, even if they don't, and not everybody can do that. So the best exercise, like the best form of meditation, is the one you'll actually do. And Dr. Lyle talks about thinking about what did you do when you were little? Maybe you rode a bike, maybe you just like to dance. It doesn't have to be like an hour of some kind of laborious, spinning, which is what I often do, because for my schedule and my time, that works very well. It can be, first of all, it can be broken up throughout the day. So you can take like, 3 or 4, 5 or 10-minute breaks throughout the day and just put on some music and dance in your living room. Or if you have a stationary bike or a treadmill, it doesn't have to be an hour a day, because that hour a day doesn't offset the other 23 if you're completely inactive anyway. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know about bone spurs, but my guess is anything weight bearing would probably hurt you right now. So why not do water exercise? Water exercise, swimming is one of the best exercises, and most people can do it. And even if you can't swim, they have all kinds of flotation devices and belts that you can wear. And in water aerobics classes, deep water, shallow water, the people at all levels. I remember I used to take water aerobics at the Y just because that's fun. And there were some very, very overweight people in the class because they could do it, because you're weightless in the water. So I would recommend checking out if there's a YMCA near you, Christy. If not, there's usually water aerobics somewhere, like, Pasadena has the Rose Bowl. There's if you're in a big city, obviously a small city may not, but most places do have a community pool. Can't tell you if it's going to be heated this time of year if it's outdoors, but that's what I would do, is some kind of water exercise. But also, when you have any kind of challenges with your body, go to physical therapy, not a gym where you're going to get a trainer, but physical therapists they're doctors of physical therapy, DBT, DPT. And one of the best types of doctors you can go to is a sports medicine doctor or a physiatrist. These are doctors that are orthopedic doctors, but don't use drugs and surgery as the first line of defense, and often can prescribe corrective exercises and physical therapy. And that's what I would do. And do the exercise you hate the least, that you think you're going to stick with, and just do something. Just because you can't do everything doesn't mean you can't do anything. Bone spurs, you might be able to spin, you might be able to use a stationary bike, but these people out there, there's experts that can help you figure out what you can do within your level of limitation. And as you lose the weight, exercise is going to become easier, and then you might end up to the point where not only you don't hate it, but you enjoy it. And I know there's another question on exercise that I think might help, about people that don't like exercise, because here it is from Dixie. Any tips for making an exercise an enjoyable habit? And so for me, what I do is, whenever I have to do something that I don't like, I pair it with something I do like. And I think it's called linking. There's an actual term in psychology for that. I can't remember right now because I'm so tired. I think it was Dr. Sylvia Tara, who I interviewed, who wrote The Secret Life of Fat, that told me. I didn't know it was a thing. So for example, I don't really like cleaning my house or doing dishes, but obviously it has to be done. So what I do is I link it with something that I enjoy. Listening to podcasts. I don't have a lot of extra time in my workday to listen to podcasts like Howard Jacobson, Plant Yourself, or Rich Roll. So when I'm doing something that doesn't require, might require my hands, but it doesn't require like a ton of focus, like I'm not doing like balancing my checkbook, I will listen to a podcast. And then or if I'm batch cooking, for example, I will listen to a podcast, something that batch cooking is enjoyable to me, so I don't really need to, but I like to listen to the podcast. So I take a less enjoyable experience, like exercise is for many people, including myself, and pair it with a more enjoyable one. So for me, what I do, Dixie, is I have Netflix, and I don't allow myself to watch it except for when I'm on the spin bike. So if I want to see a show, I got to spin, and the better the show, the more I'm going to spin. I just finished 5 seasons of Schitt's Creek. I hear it's coming back. So believe me, I'm going to be on that bike a lot more. I'm right now I'm watching The Irishman. I just watched Marriage Story. And what's great about Netflix versus like TV or DVDs, it remembers where you are. So it's really cool. So That's how I make exercise more enjoyable. What a lot of people do to make exercise more enjoyable is to do it with other people. So if you're an extrovert, if you're a social person, you're probably going to enjoy more going to, say, a Zumba class or a group exercise class than you are spinning at home alone. So again, think about what suits your personality and of course your schedule and of course the weather. I mean, a lot of people don't like quote exercise, but they like sports. So, I love pickleball now because it's like we're playing a game. I would probably like basketball. We have a court here. There's really nobody to play with. But if you're slightly competitive, if you like being outdoors, if you like games, I mean, pickleball is great because old people like us can do it, and it's fun and it's fast paced and it's good exercise. So, find something that you like, and I think that's going to make it more enjoyable. The thing about exercise is a lot of times you don't feel good until after you do it. So, like with eating crap food, you're feeling good while you do it, but then afterwards you feel bad. Exercise, it's not so much that you feel bad while you're doing it, but you seem to feel better after you stop doing it and you get all those wonderful endorphins. So I would just play around. Groupon is a great way, Dixie, to expose yourself to types of exercise that you might not normally try for a very, very low amount of money. When I just got back from Rancho La Puerta, they literally offer every kind of exercise known to man, from Bosu Fit to TRX to all the traditional spinning and hiking and pickleball and tennis and sand volleyball. There's probably 50 classes a day. And that's how I got into spinning, because that was the one that I hated the least back then. Now I like other kinds of exercise. But on Groupon, you can often buy these fitness passes where you can try these different kinds of classes and find something you like. Like there's something that I recently tried. I don't know if I'll continue with it, but it was really nice to try. It was called aerial silk yoga, where it was like yoga, but you kind of hung from the wall and it was kind of different. I took a bounce class. So I would try as many different things as you can, and you can get the Groupon, and then hopefully you'll find something you like. All right. Carolyn says, tips for gaining flexibility to prevent getting injured in a fall. I'm afraid of falling and breaking a hip. And so I would recommend yoga or gentle stretching, some kind of stretching. A lot of people only exercise aerobically. I mean, all they're doing is they want to burn calories. So they'll do their aerobic exercise, which by the way is important. I was interviewing the Sherzais, the neurologists, to talk about preventing Alzheimer's disease. And they say for Alzheimer's prevention, you got to break a sweat at least 30 minutes a day. And they said that the bigger your leg muscles are, the more proactive you're going to be towards preventing Alzheimer's. So you have to break a sweat for that. But a lot of people will only do the aerobics. They won't do the strength training and they won't do the flexibility. And you need to really do all of it. And I'm guilty of not doing the strength training. So I understand that, it's hard to start a new exercise habit if you weren't somebody traditionally that lifted weights. I find that the hardest and the absolute most boring thing in the whole world. I know a lot of people love it, but I happen to adore yoga, and the kind of yoga that I love, and especially because you're seeking flexibility, is called yin or deep stretch. And I actually teach it in my community. I call it gentle stretch here because not everybody knows what yin is. And there's free videos online. There's subscription programs that are as little as $5 a month for yoga. But I happen to know where you live, and I would go to Black Dog Yoga and take one of the classes, because I can do the splits now, and a lot of people will see me do it and they go, "Oh my God, you're so flexible." Well, I am now, but when I started yoga in August of 2011, I couldn't even spread my legs more than about this. I mean, now I'm like this, but it took 7 years, and it's like, well, oh, you're so thin. Like, yeah, but it took like 2 years and I was fat my whole life. But that's the thing about consistency and commitment and doing something over and over. But flexibility is very important. And I mean, I've broken bones in my life. I slipped on a wet floor and broke my knee. Yoga didn't help me with that. I didn't see it coming. But I have a feeling that if I fall now, I probably won't break anything because I am really flexible. The other thing is don't wear high heels. I know they're really pretty and really sexy. I was told by an orthopedic doctor when I was 35, do not wear them anymore. You can't wear them. And I've broken the rule a couple times, like at the conference in Vegas. But wear that. Best piece of advice got from my mom: comfortable shoes. Really good to have proper fitting shoes, and do some yoga. And I think you might even like it. All right. Teresa says it's the time of year everyone is setting goals, working on these things. if you have limited time, how would you go about deciding where to focus your effort, food, movement, mindset, and education to get the most bang for their time investment? You know, I think it's going to depend on the person. And this will lead into the question I have about the course that I'm starting to teach on Tuesday called the Lose Weight with a Full Plate, the masterclass. Instead of 21 days, we've expanded it and added material, and it's 12 weeks. And so, I think this is why it's better to work with people sometimes individually, because I don't think there's one answer saying it depends on what the person needs. If the person is at the point where they're going to have a stent or go on diabetes medication, of course, the food, we've got to get the food right. I think that when you get the food right, a lot of the other things fall into place. And so many people don't have it right yet. And I think that can be one of the most freeing things, because when you get it right and your brain becomes stabilized and calm, and you're not always in the pleasure trap and craving, you have the bandwidth now to focus on things like the meditation, like the goals, like the exercise. So I'm a big proponent in getting it food first and food forever. And so to answer the questions about the class that came in through the mailing list, this one is from Audrey. Can you tell me what's different in this new program over the subscription? I have the Feel Fabulous Over 40. So again, how things are delivered is what's different. I don't teach vastly different information, but it's how deep that we dive into it that makes the difference. So if you're just maybe watching me for the first time or don't realize I have educational programs, first thing I'll let you know is I have a lot of free stuff. I have, I think, close to 500 YouTube videos now, and probably over 100 of them are not recipe videos. They're what we call Weight Loss Wednesday, when I was doing the long form 1 hour answering questions live, and many of them are interviews. So, I mean, I've met people, I've been traveling for the last 10 years. I remember meeting somebody, I think it was in Washington, said, I've never given you a dime. I've watched all your free stuff, and I reversed my stage 4 kidney disease. So you don't have to give me any money. I don't have any secrets. It's just that I do charge for my time when I teach these classes, but I have 500 free videos. My book is available for free in the library, both my books, Unprocessed and The Secrets to Ultimate Weight Loss. And if it's not in your library, you can get it there. I donate my books to every library that I can. I mean, where I am, I don't just send them to every library, but in the desert I did. And there is a form that every library has where if you don't see my book, you can fill it out and they will get the book. And so I know it's possible because I've seen it happen. And if you don't already have an Audible account, the first book is always free, and my book is also available on Audible. So those are ways to get a lot of the free stuff. And then I do, the broadcast, things like that. And so the Feel Fabulous Over 40 is a membership website that was founded in July, where there's just a lot going on in there. There's a lot of bells and whistles in terms of a meal planner tool, place to find accountability partner, videos that I've done with yoga and that Rosanna has done with Zumba like classes. And it has what's called a vault. And so it's really hard if you have a question and you have to wait till the next month for me to answer it or to search on YouTube. But in the Feel Fabulous group, anything question you have, this took almost a year to build. You can put the keyword in, like stevia, and any time that I mentioned it in any video, it will take you exactly to that minute. So it's one of the coolest things I've ever seen. So it's we have an interaction every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific time in the Feel Fabulous group. It's a wonderful group of people, and they're not all over 40. They're not all female. That's just the name of the group. And the interaction is usually live, but sometimes I'm away, so it's taped. And the interactions vary. Once a month, it's me doing what I'm doing now. Once a month, it's Dr. Doug Lyle answering your questions. Once a month, it's what we call a success story, somebody that has done this and they give their feedback. And then the other time, it's something else. So it could be, I think we have Dr. Goldhammer coming up this month. We've had Dr. McDougall, so things like that. So I'm not really, quote, teaching anything in Feel Fabulous or even in the Ultimate Weight Loss Program, which they're about $2 difference in price. The price is about $12 a month. And it's easier if you pay for the whole year, then it's cheaper. And you get content from the Ultimate Weight Loss. There's some videos that were from a conference many years ago, but I'm not really teaching anything. I'm answering questions. When I do educational classes through Better Life Summits, there's a curriculum. So any of you that know, we started about a year ago with a class that I call Feel Fabulous Over 40. That's where we got the name for the membership website. And we renamed it Lose Weight with a Full Plate because that is really what we were teaching. It was taking the principles in my book, The Secrets to Ultimate Weight Loss, and just diving deep into each chapter and giving out assignments and giving people the amount of time they needed to work on these principles. So by having it 12 weeks instead of 6 weeks, you have, for each module, there's 6 modules, you have 2 weeks to work on it. So one week we deliver the module, and the next week we work on it, and then we have Q&A based on that module. So for people that need more structure, it's a good thing because it's weekly lessons. It's like taking a course in college. You know, you go, I mean, different times, but you go consistently for that semester. And so we did the course last year, and a lot of people had a lot of success doing it. And so we're repeating it, but we've added a lot more content. For people that took it last year, they get a 50% discount if they want to redo it. And so, because it will be different because I'm teaching it live and we'll have new content. But it's the same subject material, which is how to lose weight with a full plate, which is what I teach and what I write about. So that's how it's different. We're going to be doing some laser coaching in that as well, where people have the opportunity to like as if they were a client. We're going to show how we do that. So that's kind of cool because I don't do private clients anymore. And someone else had a question about it from Ireland, and name is Elva. What time the phone calls are? Okay, so they're actually not phone calls, and they are like what you're seeing now. And I don't know if it's Zoom or Webinar Jam, but basically it's like this. So, and they're 5 p.m. Pacific time. So I'm not sure what time that would be in Ireland, but within 24 hours of any live interaction, they will be posted into the member center. And Elva had another question about cholesterol. Have I actually witnessed the food approach I recommend reduce cholesterol? I'm not too overweight, 50 pounds, but I have very high cholesterol, which is bothering me. Don't want to take medication. I'm a relatively healthy eater, but I know I could do better. Surprised by my high cholesterol. Yeah, I mean, so a lot of high cholesterol, especially in women, is genetic. And I know when I've interviewed people like Dr. Esselstyn, he said as long as you're eating the diet that he recommends, you don't necessarily have to worry about the number. But when you get your weight down, it's very possible that the cholesterol will go down. And one of the things that, of course, is recommended is to not eat any cholesterol. Your body produces all it needs. And so we recommend a 100% plant-exclusive diet that's free of cholesterol. So that means no meat, fish, fowl, eggs, or dairy products, and definitely no saturated fat. So there's no oils, there's no free oils, and definitely not coconut. And for people that are not at their ideal weight or struggling with food addictions, that means no overt fats, at least till they're losing their weight, which is nuts, seeds, and avocado. So until you tried that, I would definitely not go on medication at first. Why not give that a good 3 to 6 months? The program is 3 months, and you can make a lot of changes in 3 months. And, I used to do everything for free. Like when I was starting out, I've been teaching cooking for 20 years. I don't do that for free because I teach at schools and they don't do that for free. But when I started my programs, my 30-day unprocessed challenge, or my 3-week live ultimate weight loss program, which I would do in my home when I lived in Los Angeles, I didn't charge, and I'd have like 30 people. Remember, they'd come every week for 4 weeks. And we never got the kind of results we got when we started charging. There's an old saying, people that pay attention. And I don't know why that's true, but it is, because when you don't have skin in the game, you're like, whatever. I mean, I've been given programs for free, a lot of times to try, and you know what? I don't do them. But when I pay like $2,000 for a program like I just did, this is not a weight loss program, it was a business program. Guess what? I'm at every call. I'm doing every assignment. And so, basically this course is less than $25 a week. So if you've ever gone to a movie with your spouse, well, depending on where you live, it's more than that in LA. So, all right, now I know we have more questions. So let me go. Adona says, what is the preferred way to regain more stable balance? Again, this is where a good physical therapist could be helpful. There are classes, like in Rancho, they taught them it was called a stability class. I mean, that's literally all they taught. And one of the things they used was one of those stability balls. It's like blue and it's rounded, and you're with a bar. There are classes that can help you gain that stability. Where you live, again, I don't know where they are, but that's why it's so cool going to physical therapy, because that is what they focus on, literally. And you might want to get one of those things for your house. You just want to be very careful, do it on carpet, maybe over a yoga mat, somewhere against the wall, because if you're not good at balancing. One thing you can do though, and I've done this for years, is when you're brushing your teeth, I remember my podiatrist told me this years ago, you just stand on one foot. You don't have to take it up all the way, your leg, but just a couple of inches, and you're balancing on one foot. And then, after the next half of brushing your teeth on the other one. So there's things you can do definitely to do that. All right. This is not a question, but a comment from Roland, who is like a superstar when it comes to weight loss. And he loves the same food I love: sweet potato, the Hannah sweet potato, and broccoli. He says, I think you should remind people that what no added fat means. I think one of the reasons for my success is I don't eat any added fat. And that is a great point, Roland. And we know that that never doesn't work. Not everybody will be able to do that, because they buy into the fact that if they don't have nuts and seeds, they will die. And that is a couple of opinions of some very well-known doctors who I admire and respect. But there are many other doctors that I admire and respect that have the opposite opinion, like the fat you eat is the fat you wear. And I hope that when the Real Truth About Weight Loss Summit comes out in February, you'll be signed up. Again, that is free. It is completely free. One of the interviews is with Dr. Rick Dina, who was a former doctor at True North, and he talked about the truth about fat, the kind of fat that we need, which is the omega-3s. And if you're eating enough vegetables like I recommend, you're not going to be deficient in fatty acids. Also, if you have fat on your body, you're not going to be deficient in fatty acids. And that's why when I meet people that are often quite overweight, that are afraid to not eat fat because they need fat, it's like, you already have fat. If you went 30 days without fat, eating dietary fat, you really think you could become fatty acid deficient in 30 days when you are carrying around a buffet? You can't. And if you're really worried, there's blood tests. You can get what's called a fatty acid profile. And I don't recommend the finger stick. I recommend the actual blood draw. And if insurance doesn't pay, you can still get this done. I mean, there's labs. You don't need a doctor's order for everything. But the point is, if you have fat on your body, you're not going to be fatty acid deficient. There's other reasons why people like fat, because it's calorically dense. The more calorically dense the calories, the more dopamine is released. But Roland's right. One of the easiest ways to lose fat is to not eat fat, because 3% of the calories in the dietary fat is all it takes to be stored as body fat. And you really can't store excess protein or carbohydrates as body fat. That's called de novo lipogenesis. And human beings can't really do it. Pigs can do it. And so I really think that people should at least give it a 30-day trial of really not adding any fat before they make up their mind. You can always add it back in. I've had people that were eating 2 tablespoons of flax seeds a day because they thought they needed it. And it wasn't until they stopped that, which is not a huge amount of fat. I believe it's 120 calories. And I think it's like, was it 12 grams of fat? But the minute they stopped the added fat, boom, the weight finally fell off. But most people aren't doing no added fat. Most people are still eating at restaurants, and they're getting residual fat because, when you order steamed vegetables at a restaurant, are they steamed or are they blanched, for example? Like, people say, oh, a Chinese restaurant, it's steamed. Well, the Chinese restaurants that I know of, the people I know that own them, they aren't steaming them, they're blanching them. And they're blanching them in a big thing of water, big pot of water that's been boiling all day with oil and salt in it. There's fat there. They don't throw it out and put new water in for you because you said no oil. They may give you food with no added oil, but like even Sharky's, where they have the AJ burrito bowl and plate, when they steam your broccoli for the burrito or the tostada or the salad, it's on the grill that they cook all the chicken on and all the meat on, and they put this little thing over it and they add some water. So there's still oil there. So again, no added fat. If you're eating at restaurants or other people's houses, I really doubt that you're on a no added fat diet. You might be on a no added oil diet. And but that's a great point, Roland. And that's, I think, why you and I have been so successful and aren't suffering, because that's just, you can really fall in love with lower calorically dense foods once you neuroadapt and you downregulate that fat receptor. So good point. All right, where are we going next? Okay. Let's see. Here's a question about, again, should I be concerned about my low fat intake? Who are those? the Okinawans are the longest lived people on the planet, and they have, well, I forget, is it 7%? Definitely less than 10% fat intakes. Over 70% of their calories are from sweet potatoes. They're not concerned about their low fat intake. And there's all these groups where, is it the Tarahumara Indians that Dr. Esselstyn talks about? And there's the Yanomama Indians that don't eat any salt. These people like are running and running, and they're not putting oil in their food, and they're not eating nuts. You know, I don't know when we got to the point where we're so scared about not eating fat when our ancestors only ate it seasonally. Nuts, seeds, and avocado weren't available in 3-pound bags from Costco. You know, now they're roasted, they're taken out of the shell for you, and they're salted. So I don't think you should be concerned about your low fat intake unless you have a, you know, maybe a negative blood test, or are you having symptoms? I mean, the only consequence I've ever seen people suffer from low fat intake is not having a lot of fat on their body. And to me, like, that's a good thing. So again, you know, you have to eat enough calories. Fat is more than twice as calorically dense as either protein or carbohydrates. And so many people say, oh, I don't feel satiated if I don't eat fat. Well, if you listen to what Dr. Terry Shintani said last year on the summit, it's because of the caloric density. It's not because of any magical satiating property of fat. Dr. Susanna Holt, who created the satiety index, said fat has the weakest satiety. The protein and carbohydrates have a greater satiety. And in fact, the greatest, most satiating food is the white potato. But because fat is more than twice as calorically dense, you're basing the satiety on the fact that it's much more calorically dense and more calories. So the thing is if you're eating a low calorically dense diet to the left of the red line and not eating enough volume, you are going to be hungry. And that's why people get tempted to eat all the high fat foods. You know, raw foodists, unless they're doing like an 80-10-10 approach or a low fat raw vegan, you can't live on fruits. Well, not that you can't, but most people have a hard time just eating fruits and vegetables because they're 100, 200, 300 calories a pound. So what they end up doing in the raw food diet is adding a lot of coconut oil or olive oil or cacao or, agave, things like that, that I don't even believe are really raw anyway, but to get those high calories because they're afraid to eat the most satiating food group, which is the starch, the squashes, potatoes, rice, and beans. So Aaron goes on to say, should I include more beans and lentils to up the protein in my diet? I mean, why are you needing to up the protein in your diet? That's what I don't understand that. If you should eat beans and lentils if you like them, but you know, there's this thing, just like with the nuts and seeds, there's this idea going around that if we don't eat beans, we're going to drop dead or not live as long. And there are a lot of people that can't eat legumes. They're intolerant of them because they have SIBO or IBS or even true allergies. You don't have to eat any one particular food. Almost every doctor I've interviewed, from Dr. Barnard to Dr. Goldhammer to Google, says you don't have to eat beans, you don't have to eat nuts. You have to eat food, you have to eat enough calories, but it can be winter squashes, rice, beans, potatoes, sweet potatoes. It doesn't have to be legumes. And it's same thing with nuts. You have to get your calories from whole natural food, but you don't have to have any specific food. If that's true, then all these people with these nut allergies should be dead. And there's a lot of them. It's one of the #1 allergies in the world, nuts. And so, and even seeds for some people. So, you know, I mean, how are you even measuring that your protein is low? See, anytime you go to a doctor, you're going to find something. So are you having your blood tested to see what your protein is? I mean, go by how you feel. Do you feel, I mean, is your hair falling out or your nails falling out? I mean, people worry so much about protein. Read the book Proteinaholic by Dr. Garth Davis and Dr. Howard Jacobson, and you don't have to worry about protein. And, so you weight train 3 times a week or you're running. I mean, there are people that do a lot more exercise and training than you. They're not worried about whether or not they're eating, beans and nuts. Okay. This is more for JP. It's an exercise question, but I'm going to answer it because I feel it's important. Pam says, after exercise, it is important to have a post-meal snack. I don't think so. Like, why would you eat if you're not hungry? If you're hungry after exercise, you should have a snack or a meal, but why would you eat just because you exercise? Hydration is very important during and after, but I don't see the point of eating just because you exercise. I know they say that that's the best time to eat fruit and whatever, but if you're not hungry, why eat? You never could get overweight if you didn't eat when you weren't hungry. Okay. All right. Oh, there's a lot of questions here, so I don't want to keep you guys too long, but I've got to answer them. They build up. Okay, so Debbie says, what are my thoughts on raw oatmeal? I've watched several videos from Esselstyn, and he stresses how critical this is for our health. I believe he's only stressing the importance for seniors like me. Okay, so I've never seen Dr. Esselstyn say you had to eat raw oats. I know that he and his wife enjoy them that way, but where did he say they had to be raw? Because if you're following the principles of calorie density, eating raw oats is an absolute disaster because when you eat them raw, they are 1,800 calories a pound. When you cook your whole grains, the water is absorbed and you lower them to less than 400 calories a pound. I think it's 365. So I think it's a big mistake for anybody trying to lose weight to eat raw oats. I think it's not the best thing to eat rolled oats anyway for people that suffer from food addiction because they're too close to flour. If you've ever taken a rolled oat in your finger, it dissolves into flour. The reason I know this is as a pastry chef, I used to have to grind the oats into a flour. And one day the machine wasn't working and I couldn't grind it. And I had to get the order out. So I put them in whole. The cake came out fine. It was like they melted, like you couldn't, that's how flour like the rolled oat is. So I tell people, if there's anything that you need or that Dr. Esselstyn thinks you need in oats, you don't think it's going to be in the oat groat, eat the oat groat, eat the whole food form of the food, not the steel cut, not the rolled, and not the, definitely not the instant. And I've been saying this for years. People just that once they start switching from oatmeal and fruit for breakfast to like beans or beans and greens, well, greens first, of course, the weight finally comes off. So I'm not a big fan of oats for people that are having food addiction or trying to lose weight. I've said that many times in many ways. There's nothing that's that special about oats that you need. People like them because they're the highest fat grain there is. It's literally the highest fat starch. Think about it. Potatoes have only 1% of their calories from fat. Oats are close to 20%. That's why people that suffer with weight issues and food addiction are always leaning towards oat and the most processed forms. Okay. Let's see. And then Debbie also says, what should I do if it appears I can't eat as much rice potatoes, including sweet potatoes, as you recommend? I'm not losing weight as I should be, and I'm not gaining. I'm wondering if I should buy strips to test my glucose, but no, that's ridiculous. Unless you like have diabetes or something and you need to test your glucose. Because there was a question earlier about potatoes, so I may as well bring it up now. Let me find it. Is from Julie saying, can women lose weight eating potatoes? So, all right. Now, the good news in your question, and I love this, is you've proven what we've been saying all along, is that you cannot gain weight eating to the left of the red line ad libitum as much as you want, eating just fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes. It is not possible. Now, you're saying, I'm not losing weight eating that. And so one of the things I would say, and this is why it's really important to keep a food journal, and you're welcome to send it to me, Debbie, so I can look at it. I kept a food journal for the 27 months that I was consistently losing weight, and then for 2 years after. And I could go to it right now and tell you what I ate June 14th, 2013, if you want it. I'm not going to get up off the chair, but the point is what gets recorded gets remembered. And dieters notoriously underreport what they eat. Dr. Walter Kempner, who founded the Rice Diet at Duke University, who was one of Dr. McDougall's mentors, used to say all dieters are liars. And I'm not so sure that it's that they're liars. It's just that when you don't have to write it down, you don't always remember. And especially if you're eating restaurant food, it's really hard to write it down because you don't know what you ate. You're going to be blown away when you watch The Summit and hear what Dr. Susan Roberts of Tufts University says, what she discovered when she actually analyzed an average restaurant meal. And she had the ability to do so. But the thing is I would want to see your food journal for the last, at least 3 months to see what the patterns are, to see what you're eating. The fact that you're eating all these foods, delicious foods, as much as you want and aren't gaining weight is fabulous, which means you've reached a plateau or an equilibrium. So how do we shove the needle there? Well, first of all, those of you that have known me for a while know I've talked about many successful clients that have had plateaus for as much as 7 months. And while the scale is not budging, they're still losing weight. They're getting healthier. Their clothes are fitting better. They're going down in size. So that's number one. But so how often are you weighing yourself? How obsessively? Because I don't think people should be weighing themselves more than once a month. And that's what Dr. Lyle says as well. Now, some people say you should never weigh yourself. I don't agree with that because according to the National Weight Control Registry, one of the things that people that were successful in keeping the weight off, they did weigh themselves. And it doesn't mean every day or several times a day, but it's once a week or once a month. I'm not opposed to that at all. So, you only lose about 2 ounces of fat a day, and it's not discernible if you're weighing yourself every day. And so people flip out when they eat starch, especially if they've come from a restriction type of weighing and measuring program or a keto or a paleo, because they will eat a potato and the next day the scale's up 4 pounds. And they're like, see, potatoes make you fat. Well, really? You really gained 4 pounds of fat. It takes 3,500 calories to make a pound of body fat. So you ate a potato. So that potato was 14,000 calories, and that's how you gain 4 pounds overnight. That is ridiculous. You don't know anything about thermodynamics. When you eat carbohydrate, you hold on to water. So about 2 of those 4 pounds are water, and about 2 pounds are glycogen, which gets stored in the liver and in the muscles. But you did not gain 4 pounds of fat. But the fact that you're at an equilibrium eating this just shows how beautifully this is, and it's true. So what do? People say, "Oh, I overeat on starch." Well, I've never met a person that overate on starch unless they were under eating on vegetables. So I would say, how many vegetables are you eating relative to the starch, and are you eating them first? So many people take the program that I've designed and just do the bits and pieces that they like, ignoring the other parts of the program and then saying, see, it didn't work. Well, I recommend vegetables for breakfast, and many people are eating oatmeal and fruit for breakfast, or they're eating vegetables with starch for breakfast, which is fine if you are in weight maintenance mode. But if you're in weight loss mode, you want to eat the most calorically dilute foods first. This is a concept that Dr. Goldhammer has talked about many times called sequencing. So you start with the lowest calorie things, which are salad vegetables, raw vegetables. They're about 100 calories a pound. If you ever go to the True North Health Center, you'll see that they have a 24-hour salad bar to encourage you to do this before every meal, whether you're eating 2 or 3 meals a day. So you eat a large raw salad, and that's about a pound of food, and that's about 100 calories for a huge volume of food. And then you eat a large serving, maybe another pound of steamed greens. That's about 200 calories. So now you've eaten 2 pounds of food, huge volumes. So you're starting to activate your stretch receptor, starting to feel full. You've eaten only 300 calories. You might not be able to eat the starch at that moment. You might be too full. It might take 20 minutes or 2 hours to get hungry again. And then when you eat your starch, you eat it with vegetables. So we're not just doing an all potato diet. And I'm going to talk about that in a moment because I actually have a question from Diana about that. If women can lose weight just eating potatoes, and what do I think about the potato cleanse? But first, let's address your question. The thing is I would wonder, Debbie, are you sequencing every single meal? So is every meal starting with a raw salad, steamed vegetables, and then when you're hungry again, starch with vegetables? Let me know that. If that is the case, then well, we asked Doug Lyle, because they have had, in the last 32 years, Dr. Goldhammer, Dr. Lyle have seen over 30,000 people come there, and they weren't all there to lose weight, but they all did, because it's impossible to eat this way and not lose weight. We've never had a person stay with me, whether it was for 2 days or 3 weeks, that didn't lose weight. And these were people that weren't coming here. So these were just guests, or we have had some pilot programs where just to show that if you eat what I give you, you lose weight. When we did the business training last year, the 4 people were not here to lose weight, and they were at varying weights, and they were like, "Oh, I can't eat the jam bars. I can't. You eat so much starch." And I'm like, they all went home like 4 pounds thinner, and they were here for like 8 days. So we've never not seen it work. Usually there's something in your diet that is causing that. Dr. Goldhammer has always said, show me an overweight person and I'll show you someone who is unwilling to eat enough raw salad and steamed vegetables. It's impossible to sustain obesity if you're eating enough vegetables. That is the food that's not only lowest in calorie density, highest in nutrient density, linked to most disease prevention. Whether Dr. Esselstyn is recommending the greens for the endothelial, or the Sherzai recommending it for preventing Alzheimer's. I tell people to eat 2 pounds a day because I feel it's doable, but I eat way more than that. I mean, when I was losing weight, I was probably eating more like 6 pounds of vegetables a day. Now, I mean, 2 is the minimum, minimum. So, ideally you want to eat about double that if you're trying to lose weight. You want to fill up on these foods, and you don't do them to the exclusion of starch. Never, never, never. But the other thing is which vegetables are you eating? When I started doing this program in 2012, I recommended greens for breakfast, not green juice, not green smoothie, but cooked greens, because of the fact that they had these thylakoids, which had this proven track record for cutting off cravings for sugar later in the day and turning off the hunger drive. But most people don't want to take the time to learn to eat greens and love them and crave them. So they're doing other vegetables like cucumbers or cherry tomatoes, which is fine. Those are very healthy, but there's no thylakoids except in the dark green leafies. So again, I would really need to see a 3-day food journal, but I don't think you need to be buying test strips or, you just need to change what you're eating before you eat the starch, and don't eat starch alone. This is why I think for women, these all potato diets are disastrous, for a lot of reasons. So I'll go on to Diana's question right now about, what do you think of potato cleanse? Well, I'm not a fan of any kind of cleanse other than going to True North maybe and doing therapeutic water only fast, medically supervised, which a lot of people do, even if they're not overweight, every year, just sort of on their birthday or Christmas, just sort of just as part of their health routine. If you have to do a cleanse, that tells me that you're not leading a healthy lifestyle. You don't want to, you want to lead a life so that you don't have to do a cleanse, like a master cleanse with maple syrup and cayenne pepper. I mean, those are ridiculous, by the way. You'll lose weight anytime you limit your calories. But I find that the more restrictive you are, the more likely you are to rebel, rebound, and binge. And listen, I'm a fan of potatoes. I eat about 3 pounds of sweet potatoes or both a day. But the problem with, when you have to do a reset, that tells me that you have not been leading a healthy lifestyle. And so why not look at your life and let's fix what's going on that you can't stick with a healthy diet. That's what I would do rather than just like, I've blown it, and so now I'm going to do 30 days and just do that. And the thing is there's nothing magical about potatoes. Anything could reset you. It could be watermelon. The idea is when you limit the food choices, you limit your decision making about the food, which you can do with a variety, by the way. If you were to order Mama Says, your meals are all planned out. You don't have to think about it. But the thing with potatoes is the people that I know that are doing these potato cleanses aren't just eating potatoes. They are making them as hyper palatable as possible. They're putting them in the air fryer and making little crunchy fries, and they're putting them in the panini press and making hash browns, and they're putting cheese sauce on them, and they're using condiments that probably have salt and sugar. So how is that a cleanse? To me, a cleanse is you're removing all sugar, oil, salt, all processed food. If you're using nutritional yeast and all these condiments, that's not a cleanse anymore. That's like, that's like delicious to just be eating French fries and hash browns and cheese sauce all day. So I think that anytime you do something that tells you not to eat vegetables, that is not a good diet. It's different if you're like doing a water fast and you're not eating anything. If somebody were to say, I'm going on a cleanse of like greens and potatoes, I might say that's a lot better, but you're taking away the food that is not only the healthiest food for disease prevention, for weight loss. The study at Tufts, the more vegetables people ate, the lower the body weight and BMI. To tell somebody not to eat vegetables or particularly greens, to me is insane, because they are the healthiest food. They are what's going to fight the cravings that you obviously have been experiencing if you need to do a cleanse or a reset. So I'm not a fan of that, because it's taking away something that's very, very healthy. So, if it works for you, I think that men that do these types of diets, they work a lot better for men. Women, I don't see as much, I'm sure you'll lose weight. When you eat only one type of food, you're pretty likely to lose weight, but it doesn't have to be potato. It could be watermelon. Watermelon, doing a day of just watermelon, just eating it, that could be a wonderful reset after a relapse, or just doing a day of green juices, not doing it for 30 days, because what you're doing is you're taking away the salt, the sugar, and the fat, which what you're doing when you're doing a potato cleanse. But again, you're putting, I'm not a fan of nutritional yeast. I don't use it anymore. I have recipes that I have written with it that it's there, but after learning what I've learned from Dr. Goldhammer, how it's really not a nutritious food, and it's very calorically dense. It's very high in calories. A few tablespoons is like over 100 calories. It's highly processed. Many people have reactions to it that they don't realize, either in their gut or allergy wise. And the fact that, like Dr. Varesh said in one of the Feel Fabulous segments, the more you want it, the more you need it, the more you probably shouldn't have it. And so many people just cannot eat without putting a ton of it in the recipe, which is why I created one sauce, which is a way to make a kind of a cheese sauce, if you will, without cheese. So potatoes, do not make you fat. You cannot gain weight eating it. If you are, there's something else going on, and that's when you need to check into True North or have your free consult with Dr. Goldhammer or have a session with Dr. Lyle. But you know, he did a, if you're not in Feel Fabulous over 40, consider joining for free for 2 weeks just to listen to the 7 lectures that Dr. Lyle has given since we started. And he goes into great detail explaining how it is not possible to gain weight eating potatoes. That said, I don't think that's all you should eat. I think you should never avoid eating vegetables. Okay, so. Carrie says, I cannot volume eat in the program recommends. My doctor recommends frequent swallow meals to help with GERD. I know my heartburn is worse after a salad the size of AJ's. Well, okay, so first of all, are you seeing a plant-based GI doctor? Because if you really are following the program, GERD is one of the things that always seems to go away when people are really following a compliant version of the plant-based diet. And I would recommend Dr. Angie Sadeghi or Dr. Will B. They are both vegan. They're both GI doctors because GERD is something that usually goes away when you're eating this way. Now, when you say you're eating the size of my salad, are you eating it chopped or unchopped? Because when you take a salad and chop it in one of those beautiful Holland bowl mills or by any other means, you're taking something this big and making it this big, which is making it different to eat, making it easier to eat, not different to eat. And, you know, if you have not had gastric bypass, then you should be able to eat large volumes of food because your stomach holds about a liter of food. It's about the size of a cantaloupe, about 4.22 cups. Now, if that's causing you gastric distress, of course, don't do it. But I would look into why you have GERD in the first place if you're on a whole food vegan diet. And I would do it by talking to one of the GI doctors that I mentioned. That said, you don't have to eat large volumes of food. You can eat more times during the day if you like. I have a lifestyle that it just to me, I'm eating to live, not living to eat. And I don't want to just sit there several times a day to eat. It's very inconvenient. I like to kind of get it over with. And so 2 meals works fine for me. Every now and then, maybe I'll have a snack of vegetables or a piece of fruit, but that works fine for me. Because not everybody can do that, especially if they've had gastric bypass. So you just have to make sure you eat enough calories. That's the thing. So if you have to break it down, we eat between, according to Dr. Rolls, 3 to 5 pounds of food a day. Most people, if you're eating more calorically dilute food, you might have to eat between 5 and 8 or even 10 pounds. So you're going to be eating all day. Now, I know that Dr. Furman talks about how that's not a good thing because the difference between the catabolic and the anabolic phase, you want to have as much time as possible resting and not putting food in all the time. So what I would do is really work with a plant-based GI doctor and get rid of your GERD. I've had it. My husband's had it. When we went completely unprocessed, no more restaurants, no more oil, it went away. For a while, we had to sleep with the top of our bed up, or they have a wedge pillow that can be helpful. But I would really get to the root cause of your GERD so that you can eat large volumes, especially because it's so enjoyable. Satiety actually begins with the eyes. And when we see large volumes of food, we expect to be satisfied. That's why those weighing and measuring programs where you're getting like 17 ounces of food a meal can be so difficult because it's not enough food. Okay, Gunther says, well, your world has introduced sauces. Are you going to do a tasting video? You bet. I ordered them. They hopefully will be coming soon, and I'll make a fair and honest video where I will taste all 5 of them and hopefully also interview Dylan on how he made such marvelous creations without using sugar, oil, and salt. Okay. I'm sorry this is taking so long. I'm trying to get you guys done in under an hour. Brooke says, if I have Dr. Greger's book, have I read it? How do I feel about all his science-based tips for weight loss? Is there anything I'd recommend or recommend against? Well, as luck would have it, I saw Dr. Greger yesterday, gave him a present. I gave him a tie pin that said kale that he wore during his lecture here. And I got his book and he signed it. He said, to Chef AJ, you're the bestest. And I have not read it yet because it's almost 600 pages. But the day it came out, I did buy it on Audible. And so I can't answer this fully now. I hope you'll resubmit this question in a future date when I have time to read the book. And, again, if your program's working, then I don't know if you need 21 or 17 tweaks, like he says. There's 24 hours in a day. And figure we're awake about 16 of them. And I don't know how I'm going to fit in 21 tweaks. That's more than 1 tweak an hour. But some of them, from what I understand, are what we're already doing with the Ultimate Weight Loss Diet, where he talks about preloading with negative calorie foods. I don't know so much about the water that he talks about. He was just on Kelly and Michael, no, Kelly and Ryan last week. I don't watch TV, but I watched the clip. You know, when I talked to Dr. Barbara Rolls from Penn State, she says the preloading with water doesn't work because it exits the digestive tract too quickly, that in her over 260 research studies that the water has to be bound in the food. But when he's saying about eating an apple first or eating super salad, absolutely, that's sequencing, that's UWL. So totally a fan of that. I'd have to look at some of the other tweaks. I know, I think something called Black Cumin was one of them. So I don't need to lose any more weight, so I'm not interested in any tweaks, but hey, if they work, you know, what the heck? So, and what's recommended against, I'm not recommending against any of them until I know them. I'm just telling you what I learned from Dr. Rolls, that water doesn't seem to make people feel full unless it's in the soup, the salad, the fruit, or the vegetable. But this is a good question, and I will definitely read the book and let you know what I think. The thing about research that's so interesting is that, I've been in research studies at UCLA and Cedars, and I think that, not every study is what they call a double-blind study where the person doesn't know what drug they're getting or whatever. But I think there's a tendency in research to want to please the experimenter and try to give them the outcome they want. And I'm not saying research is fake or even flawed, but I know that, when you do these research studies, you're getting all these questionnaires like day after day and week after week, and you kind of know what the study is. And I think there's a part on the participant that wants it to be true for the person. So I'm not saying that eating black cumin doesn't result in however much weight loss it is, but are all other factors equal? So I think that when it comes to weight loss, do the simplest plan you can do, the least restrictive plan you can do to get the results you want, because having to do all these checklists and stuff, it would drive me crazy. Eat to the left of the red line. That has worked for everyone that has ever gone to True North, that has really done it diligently, without eating at restaurants, that lives in a clean environment. Do everything else first. And then if you find your plan's not working and you need to tweak it, tweak it. But I think simplification is probably the easiest thing, because for something to be sustainable, it's got to be pretty easy. Okay, so Anina says, Dr. McDougall talks about how some people are sensitive to fruit, their triglycerides go up. He says that fruit should be limited for at least several weeks to help lower triglycerides. Have I seen this in any of my clients? Is it all fruit? Is berries and citrus okay? Yeah, so I have seen people with high triglycerides, especially as they're losing weight. Once they get down to their ideal weight, it often normalizes. I don't know if there's any difference in the types of fruit. Triglycerides, if I remember correctly, are the fat in the blood. So I'm not sure why fruit would do that, but you certainly could try the lower glycemic fruits like grapefruit, oranges, apples, and berries. Most people tend to eat a lot of the tropical fruits. They want the super sweet mango and pineapple and lots of bananas. Realize also, Nina, that there are 6 non-starchy vegetables that are botanically fruits: cucumbers, eggplant, zucchini, okra, tomato, and bell pepper. You can eat those as much as you want, and those will not affect your triglycerides. And those are very healthy. Those can be salad. Those can be turned into gazpacho soup. So, maybe concentrate on those. You can always do an experiment. You can always go like a month without eating any fruit. You eat the fruity vegetables. Don't go without fruit, but you can certainly have, bell pepper, tomato, cucumber, those kind of things, and see if it changes. And unfortunately, before Dr. McDougall retired, you could literally for free just email him and he would answer you, but he's not doing that anymore. But maybe I can get him back on Feel Fabulous, and then he could answer this. Or actually, when Dr. Goldhammer comes back, I believe you're a member of Feel Fabulous, so please submit it there as well. Shauna says, how many tablespoons of Dulse flakes does Chef AJ use, and how many times a week? So I'm not using the flakes, Shauna. You can check in my Amazon store, the product I'm using. It's a smoked Dulse, and I just tear off pieces, a few times a week when I think about it. So it's not the flakes, because I like the smoked flavor better. And, just a few times a week. If you like it, maybe more. Brooke says, I eat big satiating meals, but still seem to snack on carrots and cucumbers. Do I need to white knuckle it? I don't know. I just think that my feeling is I'm not a fan of snacking, because like Dr. Furman says, we don't want to just keep putting food in all day long. If you feel like you have to eat between meals, either you're not eating enough at meals or you're eating for reasons outside of hunger, like anger, boredom, anxiety, loneliness, depression, stress, because you're tired. So, I'm not a fan of snacking. I think you're hungry or you're not. And so you either eat or you don't. And I mean, if you are snacking, you're snacking on the best possible thing, which is non-starchy vegetables. But again, for most people, if they're snacking, they're overeating. And so I would definitely see if you could just eat at mealtime. I think that's preferable, and definitely don't eat after dinner. That's another thing that all the experts on the Real Truth About Weight Loss Summit agreed with, whether they were talking about intermittent fasting or not, is, Dr. Greger said in his book, 7 o'clock. Some people say a little earlier, but don't eat at night. Monica says, I love potatoes, broccoli, cauliflower, and other vegetables daily, but they make me bloated. What can I do to eat to get healthy? How do I get rid of the bloating? Again, I would refer you to one of the plant-based GI doctors. You're in Los Angeles, so you could easily see Dr. Sadeghi. I mean, not easily, you'd have to drive. She's in, I believe, the Laguna Beach area, but they all do like Skype consults, Dr. Wilby. Also, you're very, very petite, Monica. And when you say bloating, is it really bloating, or is it because you're eating large volumes of food? I mean, it is normal for your stomach when you fill it to pouch out. And so a lot of times women think, especially if they're thin, that it's bloating when it's just normal eating of food. And it goes back down. But if it's true GI distress, I don't know about potatoes causing bloating. Cauliflower and broccoli, cruciferous vegetables, definitely can. So you can switch to less gas producing vegetables. If you Google gas producing vegetables, Brussels sprouts, of course, will be at the top of the list, but things like cucumbers, eggplant, zucchini, the fruity vegetables definitely are less gas producing. You can try them. The other thing is are you really chewing your food well to a cream, like Dr. Clapper says? A lot of times, we eat very quickly. We're swallowing air, so we're not really, really chewing our food. So again, I would ask, is it bloat, or is it just the natural poofing out of your stomach because you've had some food? You can switch up the vegetables. Another great thing you can do is what's called an elimination diet. There's one available for free on drmcdougall.com, where you basically pick a starch. Maybe you'll pick brown rice or millet, or maybe you'll pick sweet potatoes, and you pick a vegetable like zucchini. And I don't know how long, I can't remember, I did this it was like 4 or 5 years ago, and that's all you eat for a period of time. And then as you introduce foods, you keep a very accurate food journal, and then you can see if certain foods are problematic for you. But that's what I would do. And are these the only vegetables that make you feel bloated? So a lot has to do with the microbiome. This is an area that I know nothing about, and I'm hoping to interview many more doctors. But usually any kind of dysbiosis has to be your gut flora, and how you fix that, that's a good one for one of the GI docs. If weight loss is slow, should I eliminate all potatoes for a few weeks to see if it helps? No, I think that's silly to eliminate potatoes if you like them. I would increase your vegetables. And so you're so full that you can't eat as much starch. But the other thing that you can do in general is eat a different starch. You don't have to have beans every day. I mean, beans are very healthy, but you will not die if you don't eat them. And they're the most calorically dense of the starches. They're about 600 calories per pound versus, squash like kabocha, acorn, Hubbard, butternut, delicata, which are 200 calories a pound. They're 3 times as calorically dense. You could sensibly eat 3 pounds of squash for the same amount of calories in a pound of beans. Not that I'm telling you to eat that much squash, but that I would switch up the starch. Try butternut squash as your starch for a while, or kabocha squash. I mean, they're so prevalent right now, and they're so sweet and satisfying and delicious. Try that, but don't, instead of cutting your potatoes, up your vegetables. That's what I would do. Double down on the veggies. Missy says, best tips for sleep. Dr. Goldham or Dr. Lyle say how vital it is. I can only tell you what works for me. And to watch the Real Truth About Weight Loss Summit, Dr. Artal is a sleep specialist, and he gives lots of tips. Dark room, quiet room, go to bed before 10 o'clock, no caffeine, no alcohol, don't eat after dinner. Sleep mask for some people, or those kind of blackout shades can work. What works for me is I have a diffuser, and I diffuse lavender before I go to bed. It just kind of sets the stage. I have nighttime rituals. In one of the free programs I did called 14 Days to Fabulous, I showed you my morning and evening routine, but I do some stretches before. I usually take a hot bath. And so I've been very lucky to not have these problems, but definitely take a look at your caffeine and alcohol consumption if you have it, because both those things can really impair sleep. Norelle says that she's in Australia, so it's summertime. She always eats out and orders a salad without dressing, brings her own, and almost always given raw mushrooms as part of it. Yet you hear you should never eat them raw. Are they really bad for you, not cooked? If so, I wonder, why cafes serve them? Well, restaurants aren't known for being in the health business. They serve a lot of things that are really bad for us. All I know is what Dr. Furman says is that they're toxic when they're raw, that we should never eat raw mushrooms. So, you could always say, no mushrooms, please, I'm allergic. Or ask them to saute them if they will, but I don't know why restaurants do them. And I personally don't think they taste very good raw anyway. I don't like them even cooked unless I'm making my pepperoni mushrooms in the air fryer. But I've heard from Dr. Furman that no, you should not eat them raw ever, that there's some kind of toxins. Okay, and let's see. Marilyn says, it would be nice when I do a video from my Secrets to Ultimate Weight Loss book, I include the page number. Could you please provide me the reference where I did it? Because I'm pretty sure that I do that religiously and put it in the show notes. If it is a recipe that's not in the book, like the last few recipes, the marinated onions and the desert date shake, they're not in the book, so I didn't put a page number. So please tell me which recipe I did that with. Okay. So Jody says, can I clarify if the following items are compliant? Soy curls, arrowroot powder, cornstarch, low sodium soy sauce, miso paste, and tofu. All right, so let's take them one at a time. So I don't have a problem with tofu at all, other than I'm allergic, so I'm not going to eat it. But if you still have weight to lose and you're trying to lose weight, I don't recommend soy, because it is so high in fat. It's over 56% of the calories from fat. So not just tofu and tempeh, which are minimally processed, but even the edamame. I mean, it still has this calorie density to the left of the red line, like any other bean, split pea, or legume. But because it's so high in fat, it's not really favorable for weight loss. A cup of soy milk is 140 calories. A cup of almond milk is 30 calories, and those calories are coming from fat. So if you have weight to lose, I don't recommend soy products. If you eat soy products, I don't ever recommend conventional. That's one thing you always want to buy: organic soy, corn, and wheat for sure. I don't recommend wheat or gluten at all, but definitely if you're going to eat. So does that mean you should never have tofu? No, but the thing about tofu is it's a blank slate. It takes on the taste of whatever you are using it for. So anything you can do with tofu, I can do with cannellini beans or cauliflower, which are of a much lower caloric density. So a tofu is not on the red list of never to have. It's on what I would put the purple list of foods that are healthy, but very calorically dense, or in this case, not calorically dense, but very high fat. And women seem to have a much harder time losing weight and maintaining their weight loss when they're including high fat dietary foods. So I don't recommend low sodium soy sauce, coconut aminos, or what's the other one? Bragg's or miso paste, even low sodium. I don't know if you read my book, The Secrets to Ultimate Weight Loss, but I kind of go into detail there. I always say to myself, what would Goldhammer do? And it's interesting because especially these people are claiming that they gain weight eating potatoes, or they're not losing weight eating my program. I don't think they're eating my program, and I always think about how would you eat what you're eating if I was there? Or like I always think like, if I'm going to have something, like, God, what would Dr. Goldhammer say if I had that? And then I usually don't have it, because I took this class at Rancho La Puerta. It was this type of movement class called Groove, and it was a non-dance dance class. And I never danced because I'm like Elaine Bennis in Seinfeld. I'm the worst dancer, but this class was to help people get over that. And what we did is we all danced uniquely but united. And so there was every genre of music, from country to rockabilly to, and the teacher would give some suggested moves, but we all moved in our own space, and it was really a beautiful experience. And I would take this class if I could find it. So the idea is that you want to dance with all your heart, like nobody's watching. And when you eat, I'd like you to eat as if everybody's watching, and if two of the people watching are me and Dr. Goldhammer, and see if you would make the same food choices. So, raw coconut aminos, low sodium miso, you can get some brands that are as low as 90 to 115 milligrams per teaspoon, which is 1/24 the sodium of salt. So it's much better. But again, if you still have weight to lose, eating the salt just perpetuates cravings for sweet. That study that we talked about once with Dr. Olvera, 11% more calories are generally consumed when we're having salt. And those calories usually come from fat, which, by the way, soy curls and tofu, which you seem to like. Soy curls I wouldn't recommend. They're just too processed. And I don't recommend pasta either, even though pasta could technically be to the left of the red line. It's too processed. It's too flour-like. And for those with sensitive brains that are trying to establish that calm, stable brain, I don't recommend it. There's a really enough good whole food to eat, butternut squash and all kinds of things that we don't be needing to eat these processed foods like, soy curls and tofu. And if you really need to have the fat, there's ways to get it without these high fat processed foods. So cornstarch and arrowroot. So those are used as thickeners. And again, like toxicologists always say, the poison is in the dose. So people that are suffering from refined food addiction, generally any amounts of sugar and flour or these processed and zero calorie sweeteners like aspartame, stevia, erythritol, xylitol, mannitol, they go through the same refining process as drugs and alcohol. So I put cornstarch and arrowroot powder in the same category as flour. There's ways to thicken without it. I do it all the time. I use things like a piece of cooked potato. I use things like, depending, if it's a dessert recipe or a breakfast recipe, chia seeds. I've even used psyllium. So there's ways to thicken without doing that. Like for me, it doesn't bother me a little bit, but it just depends. People vary in their vulnerability to these processed foods. So if they work for you, if you're able to lose your weight and maintain it without cravings, it's probably, like a minor sin, not the end of the world. But from a culinary standpoint, there are ways to get things just as yummy without these things that you're saying. Probably not if you're eating at restaurants, of course. Thickeners, like I have a recipe for my cram muffins, which is really delicious carrot cake, which we made several times with Rancho La Puerta. It was one of the favorite recipes. And it calls for a half a cup of ground millet, or maybe it's a cup, I don't remember. But it turns out that if it's 2 teaspoons of flour per muffin. Now there's some people that say, oh, I can't have that flour. So then you don't have to grind it, or you could just use oats. For me, a small amount like that, it doesn't trigger me. Plus I mean, how often do I eat it? Twice a year when I'm at Rancho. So again, the only thing on your list that I recommend is nothing. so I'm going to give it the non-compliant. I think we just have one more question, and I apologize for keeping you longer than an hour. We just had a lot of questions this month. Melissa says, how to deal with people who say you're too thin or that they think you look better with even more weight on you, even though you have a healthy BMI and feel great. So I'm guessing, Melissa, that at one point maybe you were not as thin as you are now, because what I have found is that people that have always been thin go around life without this problem of people telling them they're too thin. I have a community of people that lovely ladies, close to my age, some younger, some older, that I play pickleball with. And all 3 of them are either as slender or more slender than me. And I've talked to them about this. And I say, do people tell you you're too thin? Like, no. Have they ever? No. Because this is how they've always known them. If you have had excess weight and now you're thin, what possible explanation could there be? Then you're dying. Either you're anorexic, or you're a drug addict, or you have cancer. Because think about it, only 2% of the people that ever attempt to lose weight actually do. I mean, keep it off. And so you're an anomaly if you're able to do this. There's also the factor of the green-eyed monster. You didn't say who these people are, but I'm guessing they're female. I'm guessing that there's not too many men that are coming up to you telling you that you look too thin. And I'm guessing that not only are they female, but there are females that are not as slender as you. I took this early on. I'm still getting people on, YouTube like, oh, you look skeletal. Really? I mean, I look skeletal. I have a thin neck. And I'm skeletal. Really? Okay. Have you ever seen a skeleton? Because I have. They have one at the orthopedic doctor's office. I don't think I look like that. I think it was about 2015, I was speaking at a plant-based conference, and one of the other speakers came up to me and said, AJ, you don't look good. You're too thin. You're not a good spokesperson for the plant-based movement. And at that time, I was actually thinner than I am now, probably by about 6 pounds. It's when I was dealing with the IBS and SIBO. I was about 114 then. Usually about 117, 120 is usually where I land, but I was very sick. And I said, I'm really sorry. I've been very sick, because I was, and the person kind of felt bad. But I remember calling all the, the three wise men, McDougal, Goldhammer, and Lyle, because I was really upset about that because she basically said, you don't look good, which I'm getting a lot of on YouTube on somebody else's channel now. But anyway, and so I talked to them about it. I said, do you think I'm too thin? And they go, and as a matter of fact, I just saw Dr. McDougal twice, and he said, you look like you gained a little weight. So at least to him, I'm not too thin. But you have to realize that we develop our worldview of what's normal by what we see around us. And depending on which doctor I interview, between 70 and 90% of people are overweight or obese, which means only 10% of people are at a normal or lean body weight. So of course you're going to stick out, and of course you're too thin because are you too thin or is everybody else too fat? So that's one thing, is because you do stick out. Now, if you've ever watched Turner Classic Movies, which I don't really see except when I'm on the airplane, they have it as a station, so I'll watch things. I recently watched Breakfast at Tiffany's and Guys and Dolls. Of course, the lead actresses are thin. Yes, that's how it is in show business. But it wasn't just the lead. With the exception of Stubby K, that was his character, everybody in those movies were thin. All the extras. Are you mean to tell me that? Because people were thin in the 50s, the 30s, 40s, 50s. There weren't very many overweight people. Even when I grew up in the 60s, I was the only fat kid for like 18 years. So yeah, your question is how to deal with it. Okay, so that's going to depend on your personality, Melissa, and this is where Dr. Lyle can be extremely helpful. Booking a session with him at esteemdynamics.com, or if you can't afford it, if you're in Feel Fabulous, this is a great question to ask him. And if you're not in Feel Fabulous, you can join for 2 weeks for free, or you can call into his podcast for free on Wednesday night, because how you deal with it is going to depend on your unique personality, how agreeable you are, how disagreeable, extroverted, things like that. And he'll be able to help you with that. I've asked Dr. Goldhammer, and I've asked Lyle and Dr. McDougal, what do I say to people? So Dr. Goldhammer said that I should say to people when they say, oh, you're too thin, you don't look good. He said, I should say, gosh, I'm really sorry that my appearance offends you. So, sometimes it depends how a person says it. Because if they say it with a lot of concern, like, you're too, like they're worried, I might say it differently than if they say it like, you're too thin, in which I'll say, thank you, that's what I was going for. Usually it's jealousy. One of the things that Dr. Goldhammer said to me is that the person commenting on another person being too thin is never as thin as the person they're commenting on. And so, he jokes that you're now a mate poaching whore. You have the ability to steal their husband, not that you would want to, but it's jealousy. What can I tell you? You've done something extraordinary that 98% of the world is struggling to do and not going to be able to do. And the fact that you feel great means that you're not too thin, and the fact that you're at a healthy BMI. You can also ask your doctor, because when my BMI is I don't know, I think it's like 19 or 19.5. So underweight, I think, has to be less than 17. So according to my doctor, I'm not too thin. And when they say you're too thin, too thin for who? For what purpose? Anyway, it's a tough one. So I've kept you guys long enough. I'm really sorry that I'm not able to see the comments. I know there was probably a lot, but my fear was if I started clicking around, I would lose the live broadcast. And as you see, just by the questions that were already submitted, I went 20 minutes over. So if I did not answer your question, I'd be happy to answer it next month on the live broadcast. Best place to submit it is if you're a member of Ultimate Weight Loss. You can submit it on that group page. If you're a member of Feel Fabulous, you can submit it on that group page. If you're not a member of any of those things, I don't really see the YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook as often as enough. So you can just submit it through my website, chefajwebsite.com. And we're happy to answer it there. If you want more information on the class, it starts Tuesday at 5 o'clock. There's still some spaces left, and be happy to answer those kind of questions as well. So I hope you had a great start to your new year, happy, healthy, and may this be the year that you get the health and the body that you so richly deserve. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Good night. I couldn't find it, and I was so worried if I clicked around, I would lose the broadcast. But the truth is I had so many questions, I wouldn't have been able to get to them without going even longer. The reason I didn't fast is because I was on psychiatric medication and it is contraindicated. So I did a juice fast, which I'm told can be even more difficult than a water fast. And I had terrible anxiety and panic during that period. And I was not yet a regular client of Dr. Doug. Have you ever tried working regularly with him? Question mark. And also, I would have to ask you, how much daily vigorous exercise are you doing? At least 1 hour every morning when you first wake up, because that is the best treatment for both anxiety and depression. There is another couple. There is another couple from our community, Lisa and Al, that are going. And they wanted to drive us in their new electric car. Huh. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, SpaghettiOs.